Ian,
Pat.
we like wrestling, don't we?
In theory.
No, I like wrestling a
Yeah.
lot.
I mean, I do.
New Japan Pro Wrestling, Access TV, the New Japan Pro Wrestling World that you can watch online. We also like WWE, in theory.
In theory.
We have talked about it
That's
less
very much in theory.
we have talked about it less and less throughout the years. We used to always do our 30-minute long WrestleMania recaps that no one really cared about too much. The hardcore following always likes us to talk about it, because it's storyline, it's athleticism, it's theater, it's adult theater. So it's kind of not depressing but disappointing to me that I have to speak about some serious stuff, some serious real world issues when it comes to WWE, because you really don't usually want to, because it's escapism.
Yeah.
But the fact is now we have to, with WWE Crown Jewel and the WWE's relationship with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and what's transpired, well, not just the past year, but over the past decades or so, with Saudi Arabia and its relationship to the U.S. But WWE says we're going to put on events. We have a 10-year deal now with Saudi Arabia. They started with the world's greatest Royal Rumble, back in April. Which was like a 50-person Royal Rumble, whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah.
And it does gangbusters. It's like, it's East, it's the West coming into the Middle East. Saudi Arabia does big businesses. They have tons of money. But there's problems, of course, with Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Big problems. This isn't like the WWE doing business in Germany or going to Australia or doing one of these things or going to Asia. The Saudis aren't the nicest people in terms of their government. They're a repressive regime.
Government, yes.
Women are second-class citizens. They're treated like animals. They weren't allowed to drive until earlier this year.
The WWE apparently was like, women can drive? Well, I guess we're back.
That means that women have full rights. That means that journalists have full rights and there's full freedom of speech and full freedom of religion. No, that's not what it means in Saudi Arabia. They're still cutting people's heads off in public squares. They're still cutting people's hands off. There's still elements that are in the dark ages. Are they trying to make changes? Sure, they have to, and you can argue that's because there's a spotlight now on them because of the world we are now, where everyone's connected. We know what's going on more easily now in these other countries that before you didn't know what was going on. So the WWE says, screw it, we're going to do business with them. Okay, so they do the first event earlier in the year. And it's semi-propaganda for the Saudis. Oh, this is the jewel in the Middle East. We're now more progressive than we ever have been before, which may be true, which doesn't mean a damn thing compared to the rest of the world.
Right.
So these are the issues people are having, or should have had before. There was a slight Saudi connection to 9/11 attacks, and we forget about these things and sponsoring terrorism in some form. So WWE is a business at the end of the day. They want to do business with them. But what happens now, though, is that right before this event happens, you have a journalist,
Jamal Khashoggi,
who was a U.S. resident working for the Washington Post. He goes over into a consulate in Istanbul, Turkey, in order to get married. He ends up getting waylaid by a group of, turns out to be, Saudi government assassins, you want to call it, and end up torturing and killing the guy inside of a consulate in Turkey, which is nasty business. The Turks got it. They got the audio of the whole thing. They turned it over to all the state agencies. Yeah, we got Khashoggi's murder by the Saudi actors, state actors. We got this on tape. This is confirmed. He wasn't seen leaving the consulate. They brought a bone saw with them before they knew this was going to happen. And this was all allegedly, put in plan by the Crown Prince to do this. So this is a big mess for WWE. This is a big, not necessarily scale for them, but now they have to square this away with the country they're going to do business with. So this turns out to be a huge clusterfuck for WWE, not just in terms of PR, but also what actually goes down during the event. It's like this huge karmic thing happens.
Yeah, it just unravels.
It unravels. And of course, this starts with the fact that, the women wrestlers aren't allowed to wrestle in Saudi Arabia, so they end up doing this consolation event called Evolution. That ends up going up pretty well from what it's supposed to be a pretty good event.
Yes.
So that ends up being good. That's good. It still doesn't excuse the fact that they're not allowed to go into this country to perform.
Yeah. I can't even imagine what the back room must be like. I mean, how do these people feel about all this shit? At the end of the day, I mean, it's your job, but Imagine being oh, thanks for doing business with the country that won't let us perform.
Well, they try to play it up. I don't know if you've watched the build up to Evolution, but they had everyone out like, oh my god, it's a Stephanie McMahon comes out, and it's always weird with her because she plays a heel character, but then she turns positive for some shit.
Yeah.
It's so dumb, and it really bothers me. But anyway, that's a whole other conversation. So they have Stephanie come out and say, it's a big deal for you. You're gonna have your own pay-per-view, and it's like, would they have had their own pay-per-view if this didn't happen?
No.
Would they have?
No, I highly doubt that.
So this is why, and it's supposedly I think it did close to selling, or it did sell out Evolution, so it did good ticket numbers, which is positive for the future of that. But there's a lot of things you have to ignore when you go and do business with a country like this, even before you have a U.S. resident and a journalist getting slaughtered in a consulate, which is disgusting. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. So what happens at the event? You have everything bad happened.
You start with fucking Hulk Hogan coming out. I mean, to announce. I mean, we've got Hulk, who almost no one has forgiven. I mean, the New Day didn't.
The New Day came out before.
Titus didn't. I mean, almost no one buys him as genuine. Many of the fans haven't bought him as genuine.
Here's the thing. I'm not saying you can't try to bring Hogan back at some point. This was not the event to fucking do it.
No.
This was not the event to do it, first of all.
No one believes his apologies are genuine. On top of that, no one's really ready to see him. People in the locker room, I mean, the word is no one really cares. I know the New Day does. The New Day was very clear about that.
Sure.
They were very clear about him being like, whatever, dude. Same with Titus O'Neil and them. They're like, no. So, I mean, that's just disrespectful to your workers. But then, so you have this guy who's already in shit, hasn't really acted like he's made any repentance to his own problems from prior, and then you have the real American Hulk Hogan coming out and shilling for Saudi Arabia.
It's really weird. And I wonder if they would have done that. That was like a late announcement, but you had two wrestlers pull out of the event beforehand.
Yeah, sorry.
Which is good.
Yeah, it's good.
You had Daniel Bryan and John Cena say, we're not being a part of this. Good on them.
Yes.
But unfortunately, they're one of the few people that can get away with saying that, probably.
Yeah.
So they had to write them out of the storyline where they basically took away John Cena's World Cup match. They said, Baron Corbin said, he's out, Bobby Lashley's in. That's how they took care of it on the Raw before. And they had the Daniel Bryan match versus AJ Styles on SmackDown, where they had Bryan tap out cleanly, and that's how they did away with that. I'm not sure if that was going to be the original plan. Who knows? But what could have been semi-punishment, I have no idea. I think they would have kept the title on AJ regardless at this point in time. They're not ready for Daniel Bryan to be champion yet. They've kind of shied away from it with things. They're probably still pissed at him at some level because I don't know why. But they said, fuck it, we're not going to be a part of this. But it's easy for them to do that. Guys like Zack Ryder can't say that. But,
right.
Guys like even Finn Balor can't say that. They're locked in. So they have the World Cup event, which is 8-person like King of the Ring style tournament. Miz gets injured during that, so they have to, for the main event, it's Dolph Ziggler versus Shane McMahon. I guess they did that. They have Shane win the fucking World Cup. I don't know why they couldn't do something else for having Dolph Ziggler win it. So it's a slap in the face because Shane, first of all, is not a wrestler. He's not a good wrestler.
Dolph Ziggler's good.
Dolph Ziggler's been a workhorse for the past 9-10 years. He's been there. He had his chance. Remember 3-4 years ago to the Survivor Series to make him propel him into the main event again. They did nothing with it. So they have Shane win. It's a slap in the face. Shane's looking at the trophy like, oh my god! It's like you wrestled a 2-minute match where you shouldn't have wrestled to begin with. It was unfortunate circumstances. I don't know what Miz's injury ended up being, by the way. I looked that up. But anyway. So Shane wins the World Cup. It's stupid. It makes the whole thing meaningless to begin with as a sort of King of the Ring style thing. So that's bad, right? Then you have Brock Lesnar getting the title back and beating Braun Strowman. When Braun's a guy they should have put the title on a year and a half ago when he was red hot. And now they made him to a comic character with, what the fuck's his name from Canada? I can't think of it right now. Kevin Owens. They made him a comic character. Then they turned him heel recently with Ziggler and his partner. I can't think of any names right now. Who's done great, by the way, and now he's face again. So, and I understand Roman Reigns is out of action. Unfortunately, they had to change his stuff up. But put the fucking title on someone who's going to be around, who's been around for the past few years, and not Brock. Like, just enough. Enough of it.
Why is he the fucking warming plate? Like, why does
Because they get the cross promotion with the UFC, and Daniel Cormier comes out and challenges Brock after he wins a legitimate fight. It's short-sighted nonsense. So that's bad. That's bad. And what else is bad about the event? Oh, they have a 30-minute main event where the average age of all the competitors is over 50 years old. If you add up their ages, over 200 for 4 guys. Shawn Michaels and Triple H versus Kane and Undertaker. And reportedly, all this nostalgia shit is because the Saudi royal family and the prince likes it. So they do it for him. It's like, oh, you want to see these old guys fight? Then we're going to put it in the main event and have a near 30-minute awful match that goes on forever. Triple H tears his fucking shoulder or pec muscle, whatever it was. Can't wrestle for a part of it. Michaels has to carry it. Kane hasn't been a good wrestler in probably 5-6 years at least. Even then, he wasn't that great. Undertaker hasn't been able to go in the past 3-4 years. It just sounds like an absolute disaster of an event.
It's just so gross, taking blood money and then kowtowing to what they want and putting on a shitty old man main event. Because
This is shit that's way worse than what they made fun of WCW for doing in the late 90s. Because in the late 90s, those guys weren't over 50. They were in their 40s. Yeah, Macho Man was over 40 and Hogan. But they could at least wrestle a decent match. Not whatever this shit was. So now they've totally gone against that. And Shawn Michaels is over 50. And he's the only one semi-athletic enough to put it together.
I don't even get me started on the fact that he's out of retirement. That's just fucking...
The whole storyline was like, well, you didn't respect us after the Australian event where you chokeslammed us. Now I'm coming out of retirement. That's the story behind this. And bringing... DX comes back when these guys are 50 years old. They were too old for it 6-7 years ago. They made fun of the fact that we were too old to do that. Shawn Michaels was like 45 the last time DX was around when he retired. So it doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense to do it at all. But besides making tens of millions of dollars, obviously, to do this event.
Dirty fucking money.
They brought Rey Mysterio back, and Mysterio looks good. But besides that, that's all I can say about it. It's just bad. I mean, they've been raked over the coals publicly. John Oliver did a huge piece on them.
I heard.
That
I gotta
just
watch that.
Excoriated them.
I love John Oliver.
Excoriated for like 20-30 minutes. It's just not good PR at all.
No, I can't believe they thought it would. I don't know what they were thinking.
Obviously, they can't cancel this event a week before. They probably could have, but that would have been bad.
Yeah, but they had more than a week.
It's a publicly traded company. It makes it a little more complicated. I get all this. But going forward, I don't know. I don't know how this affects them. They got to do 2 events a year? Or an event a year, or it's a 10-year deal. They got 9 years left. Do at least 1 or 2 events a year. Do you think that the theory is that, well, if we bring these events there, it helps them become more in the modern world? That's the theory, but I don't know. You reward bad behavior. It's always the thing. That was always the argument about us normalizing relations with Cuba. It's like, do you reward bad behavior, or do you help them by normalized relations? That's always the argument. But with this, is just heinous with this stuff that happened right before. It's just heinous.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty clear no in this instance.
In this case,
you just don't.
Yeah. Okay, it's just disappointing. I wonder if they're gonna punish Cena or
because you're not rewarding them with anything that's needed or necessary. This is entertainment.
It's an entertainment event.
I mean, they're I mean, the way you described it, they're basically getting to play with wrestling toys.
They have so much money, the royal family. Yeah, it's like, oh, we want to see this, and yes,
they brought it over and basically booked themselves a match, and then people came and watched it, and they all made money.
Yeah, and at least in the event earlier in the year, they had all the Saudi royals were like in the front rows, and of course, it's on display for them. It's their event. They have all the money in the world. That they bought it.
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, it's a lot different than, say, I would say a Cuba thing where, it's like, okay, what this is not they're not actually, there's no
doesn't
real
benefit the people.
There's no benefit to the people.
Sure, it's a PR thing for the Saudis. They get to play with their toys, like you said. It's another 8 Lamborghinis that they get.
That's it.